I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who'd find himself staring at another man's hands, memorizing the way his fingers curved around a hold, the way chalk dust settled into the creases of his palms. But there I was, 3 months into rock climbing, utterly fixated on Jake's hands. It started innocuously enough. I'd joined the climbing gym because my therapist suggested I needed something physical, something that required me to be present in my body instead of trapped in my head. After my breakup with Sarah, I'd spent 6 months living like a ghost in my own apartment, going through the motions of work and sleep without really feeling anything. The gym was supposed to be about reclaiming myself, about learning to trust my own strength again. Jake was my assigned belayer on my first day. The gym paired newcomers with experienced climbers, and I got lucky, or so everyone told me. Jake had been climbing for 5 years, had the lean, defined build that came from hauling yourself up walls several times a week, and apparently had a reputation for being patient with beginners. What they didn't tell me was that he had these dark eyes that seemed to see right through whatever facade you were wearing, or that his voice would become this low, steady anchor when you were 20 feet up and convinced you were about to fall. That first day, I was terrible. My arms shook, my legs trembled, and I couldn't figure out the balance between pushing with my legs and pulling with my arms. I made it maybe 12 feet up before panic seized my chest, and I froze completely. My fingers were cramping around the holds, and I could feel my heart hammering so hard I thought everyone in the gym must be able to hear it. "Hey," Jake's voice floated up from below, calm and unhurried. "I've got you. You're not going anywhere unless you want to. Just breathe for a second." I did. I breathed, and slowly, my heart rate settled. "Now, look to your left," he continued. "There's a good hold there, about shoulder height. You see it?" I did see it. A bright blue hold shaped like a half moon. "Great. Now, here's the thing. You're going to let go with your left hand, and you're going to reach for that hold. And while you do that, I want you to remember that I'm down here, and you're attached to a rope, and the worst thing that happens is you swing a little. That's it. That's the scariest thing that can happen right now." Something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact and certain, made me believe him. I reached for the hold. My hand found it, and I kept climbing. When I finally made it to the top, the relief and exhilaration that flooded through me was unlike anything I'd felt in months. I lowered down, and when my feet touched the ground, Jake was grinning at me like I'd just submitted Everest. "See? You're a natural. Same time next week?" I nodded, unable to stop smiling. That became our routine. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, 6:30 sharp, I'd show up and Jake would be there, already chalked up and ready. He never made me feel stupid for asking questions, never showed impatience when I struggled with a route he could probably climb blindfolded. He'd demonstrate techniques, his body moving up the wall with this fluid grace that seemed almost effortless, and then he'd come back down and talk me through it, step by step. "Climbing's all about problem solving," he told me one evening as we sat on the mats, sharing a water bottle because I'd forgotten mine. "Every route is a puzzle. You've got to figure out how your specific body, with its specific strengths and limitations, is going to get from point A to point B. There's no one right way. There's just your way." I found myself thinking about that a lot, even when I wasn't at the gym, about finding your own way, about trusting yourself to solve problems instead of just being paralyzed by them. The thing was, I started looking forward to those climbing sessions more than anything else in my week. At first, I told myself it was just about the climbing, about the satisfaction of completing a route that had stumped me the session before, about getting stronger and more confident. But somewhere around the 2-month mark, I had to admit to myself that it was more than that. It was the way Jake would touch my shoulder when he was explaining foot placement, his hand warm through my t-shirt. It was how he'd sometimes climb right beside me on an easy route, matching my pace, his body just inches from mine as we moved up the wall together. It was the sound of his laugh when I made a stupid joke to cover my nervousness, and the way he'd study my face when I was quiet, like he was trying to read what I wasn't saying. I'd never been attracted to a man before, at least I'd never let myself acknowledge it. There'd been moments, fleeting things I'd pushed away. A teammate in college whose smile made my stomach flip. A coworker whose cologne I found myself noticing a little too much. But I'd dated women exclusively, had been with Sarah for 3 years, and I'd assumed that was just who I was. Jake was making me question everything. One Thursday evening, about 3 months in, I was attempting a route that had been defeating me for weeks. It was rated a level above what I usually climbed, and there was this one section, about 15 feet up, where you had to make a dynamic move, basically jumping from one hold to another. I'd tried it 6 times already, and every time, I'd hesitate at the crucial moment and fail to commit. "You're overthinking it," Jake called up to me. "Your body knows what to do. You just have to trust it." I tried again, positioned my feet, bent my knees, prepared to explode upward toward the hold. And then I hesitated, and my fingers slipped, and suddenly I was falling. It wasn't a long fall, maybe 4 feet before the rope caught me, but in that moment of weightlessness, something cracked open inside me. I hung there in my harness, suspended in the air, and suddenly I was crying. Not just tears, but these huge, gasping sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep in my chest. "Coming down," I managed to choke out. Jake lowered me immediately. The moment my feet hit the ground, he was there, unclipping me from the rope with practiced efficiency, his hands steady and sure. He didn't say anything, just guided me to a quiet corner of the gym, away from other climbers, and sat down beside me on the mat. I couldn't stop crying. It was like everything I'd been holding in for the past year was pouring out of me all at once. The breakup, the loneliness, the feeling of being lost in my own life, and underneath it all, this terrifying, exhilarating realization about who I might actually be. Jake just sat with me. He didn't try to fix it or tell me it was okay. He just stayed, his presence solid and grounding beside me. At some point, his hand found mine, his fingers lacing through mine, and that simple contact felt like the most honest thing I'd experienced in years. When I finally could breathe again, when the tears had slowed to occasional hitches in my breath, I looked at him. His dark eyes were full of something I couldn't quite name. Concern, yes, but also understanding. Like he knew exactly what was happening to me. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice rough. "I don't know where that came from." "Don't apologize," he said quietly. "Climbing brings stuff up sometimes, all that time in your head, all that facing your fears. Things surface." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked. And suddenly, I did, desperately. I wanted to tell him everything, about Sarah, about feeling like I'd been playing a role in my own life, about these feelings I was having that I didn't know how to name. But the words stuck in my throat, too big and too frightening to let out. "I don't know how," I finally said. Jake squeezed my hand, which I'd forgotten he was still holding. "That's okay. You don't have to figure it all out right now." We sat there for a long time, just breathing together in that quiet corner. Around us, the gym continued its usual rhythm, climbers calling out beta, the sound of carabiners clicking, the whir of autobelays. But in our little bubble, everything was still. "Can I tell you something?" Jake said eventually, his voice soft. I nodded. "I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly, but close enough. When I first started climbing, I was running from a lot of things, mostly from myself. It took me a long time to understand that the thing I was most afraid of, the thing I kept trying to outrun, was actually just me, trying to be honest about who I was." My heart started pounding again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from hope, from the possibility that maybe he understood, maybe he saw me, maybe I wasn't alone in this. "How did you figure it out?" I asked. He smiled, a little sad, a little knowing. "I stopped trying to fall on purpose and started letting people catch me for real." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the vulnerability in his face, the courage it took to say what he'd just said. And I understood that this whole time, while I'd been learning to climb, I'd also been learning something else. I'd been learning to trust, to be vulnerable, to let someone see me when I was struggling and afraid. "Jake," I said, and his name felt different in my mouth now, weighted with meaning. "I think I'm scared of what I'm feeling." "What are you feeling?" he asked, and his voice was so gentle, so patient, just like when he talked me through a difficult route. "Like I'm about to let go of something I've been holding on to for a long time, like I'm about to fall, but this time I want to." His thumb traced a small circle on the back of my hand. "I'm here. I've got you." And somehow, those simple words gave me the courage to close the distance between us, to lean in and press my lips to his. It was tentative, questioning, my heart hammering against my ribs. For a moment, he went still, and I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. But then he was kissing me back, his free hand coming up to cup my face, and it felt like coming home to a place I'd never known I was looking for. When we finally pulled apart, I was shaking again, but this time, it wasn't from fear. "I've been wanting to do that for weeks," Jake admitted, his forehead resting against mine. "But I needed you to figure things out on your own. I needed you to be sure." "I'm not sure of anything," I said honestly, "except that this feels right. You feel right." He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "That's a good place to start." We sat there for a while longer, holding hands in the corner of the climbing gym, while I processed everything that had just happened. My whole life felt like it was shifting, like I was seeing myself clearly for the first time. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. "So what happens now?" I asked. Jake stood up, pulling me with him. "Now, we go back to that route, and you're going to stick that move, because you can do it. You've always been able to do it. You just had to stop being afraid." And he was right. When I clipped back in and climbed up to that section, when I positioned myself for that dynamic move, I didn't hesitate. I trusted my body, trusted the rope, trusted Jake holding the other end. I exploded upward, my hand shot out, and my fingers wrapped around the hold. I stuck it, and I kept climbing all the way to the top. When I came back down, Jake was waiting with that grin I'd come to love, and this time when he hugged me, I let myself sink into it, let myself feel the full weight of what it meant. This wasn't just about climbing anymore. This was about learning to trust myself, to be honest about who I was, to let someone catch me when I fell and celebrate with me when I succeeded. We left the gym together that night, our hands brushing as we walked to our cars. Before we parted, Jake caught my hand again. "Same time next week?" he asked. I smiled. "Actually, I was thinking maybe we could grab dinner sometime, outside the gym." His face lit up. "I'd really like that." As I drove home that night, everything felt different. The world looked the same, but I was seeing it through new eyes. I was seeing myself through new eyes. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, becoming exactly who I was supposed to become. Jake had been catching me all along, even before I knew I was falling, and now, finally, I was ready to let him. Total char count, 12,847.